Let's get started. Here's a page of sheet music from a popular song that I arranged for ukulele. There's a lot going on here notation-wise, so to decode it, I'm going to start from the ground up with the basics. Our foundation begins with the staff and its components for both standard notation in tablature and chord charts. This highlighted excerpt from Home on the Range is an example of standard notation and includes a staff, a clef, a time signature, measures, and bar lines. Standard notation also uses notes to show pitch and rhythmic durations, in addition to key signatures that indicate what key the song is in, but these will be addressed in the next video. This highlighted portion shows a type of notation called tablature. It also includes a staff, time signature, measures, and bar lines, but differs in that it uses numbers instead of notes to show pitch, and rhythmic durations are not shown. And finally, we have a method of notating chords using fretboard grids called chord diagrams. The chord's name is written above the grid, and the information on the grid shows open strings, unplayed strings, and finger patterns using dots, X's, and O's. Many ukulele players only learn to read chord charts, which is great for playing rhythm for songs, but a chord chart cannot show you how to play the notes of a melody or its timing. Let's take a more detailed look at this notation. Standard notation uses a set of 5 parallel lines. These lines have nothing to do with the strings on your ukulele, and in fact are used to notate music for any musical instrument. When music for the ukulele is written on the staff, you will always see a treble clef symbol placed at the far left of the staff. This clef can also be called G clef. When you start reading notes on the staff, you'll appreciate the function of the clef symbol because it tells us how to interpret the lines of the staff. Until then, just know that the staff has 5 lines and uses a treble clef or G clef when writing music for the ukulele. Next to the clef, you'll always see some type of time signature. A time signature tells us how to count beats in a composition. This particular time signature is called 4/4 or common time, which is why 4/4 can also sometimes be written as a capital C next to the clef instead. They both mean exactly the same thing, and because of the standard usage of either symbol, you just have to remember they mean the same thing. Another popular time signature you'll encounter frequently is called 3/4 and is represented by the number 3 stacked on top of a 4. Now that you know what a time signature looks like, what do they mean, and how do we interpret them? Each number in a time signature has a specific function. In 4/4 and 3/4, the top number always tells you how many beats are in a measure, and the bottom number always tells you what kind of note gets the beat. When we talk about what kind of note, we are referring to a specific rhythmic value or duration. In other words, how long does the note ring? Even though we haven't read any yet, just memorize that the bottom 4 represents the duration of a type of note called a quarter note. So if the top number tells us how many, and the bottom number tells us of what, then in 4/4, there are 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. Likewise, in 3/4 time, there are only 3 beats in a measure, but the quarter note still gets the beat. 4/4 has 4 quarter note beats and 3/4 has 3 quarter note beats. You'll get more practice with this in later lessons, so for now just remember what the numbers represent, and it'll click much easier when you start putting it into practice. Continuing on, you heard me use the term measure several times when explaining time signatures. Measures are a component of the staff, and they are created by adding bar lines. Bar lines are vertical lines that divide the staff into smaller segments called measures. This example is just one single measure and was created by adding what is called an end bar line to the right end of the staff. There are several types of bar lines, and the end bar line is used to show the final measure of a composition. It shows the song's end. If you wanted to write a song that was about 2 to 3 seconds long, then this one measure would be all you'd need. If you wanted to write more than one measure, you would add another bar line, like this one here. This is what we call a normal bar line. Its function goes no further than separating one measure from another, which now that we've added it, we can see we have two measures on our staff. This also only makes enough space for a very short composition. But one way we could get more mileage out of these two measures would be to use a repeat bar line. This would turn what appears to be two measures into four by repeating them. You would play measure 1, then measure 2, then go back and play measures 1 and 2 again. Virtually every song plays the same music over and over again, while the lyrics tell the story. Using a repeat bar line allows us to fit a ton of music onto a single page that would otherwise take up several pages, and they are very commonly used. Now let's take a look at a system of notation called tablature. A tablature staff has 4 lines instead of the 5 lines found in standard notation. This is because with tablature, each string of the ukulele is represented by one of the lines of the staff. A tablature clef simply reads tab and is always placed at the far left of each staff. The strings work from the bottom up, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So any information you see on the bottom line would be played on string 4. Anything on the next line up would be played on string 3, etc. Tablature also uses bar lines to create measures and show a composition's endpoint, just like standard notation. And it also uses a time signature to show the song's beat structure. Oftentimes, you'll see what is called a combined staff that shows both standard notation and tablature simultaneously. In a combined staff, the tablature will always be below the standard notation staff. If you look at the Home on the Range excerpt again, you'll notice that the information on the two staffs complement one another. Wherever a note is shown in standard notation, there will be a number representing that note on the tablature staff, thus showing its location on the ukulele. Chord diagrams are incredibly useful for showing players how to fret chords, but they are at the same time limited in the information they provide. They can show you what to strum, but they do not show you how to strum. Additional information that will be discussed in the next lesson is needed to show rhythm. A chord diagram is a grid. This grid is a graphical representation of the first 4 frets of the ukulele. The top horizontal line is thicker and represents the nut. Each consecutive horizontal line represents a fret. The vertical lines represent strings 4, 3, 2, and 1 from left to right, just as they would appear on the instrument. Dots are used to show where a finger is needed. This dot shows a finger on string 1, fret 2. Oftentimes you will see more than one dot on the grid, and each new dot shows where another finger needs to be placed on the fretboard. If a 0 is placed above the nut, it means the string should be included in the chord as an open string. So you can see in this example that all 4 strings are played, but only 3 of them have fingers on them. If a string is not to be included in the chord, an X will be placed above the nut to show the string's exclusion. We can also place numbers inside the dots to show which finger should be used to fret each note of the chord. This chord diagram shows finger 1 on string 3, fret 2, finger 2 on string 1, fret 2, and finger 3 on string 2, fret 3. String 4 is not to be played. Finally, each chord needs a name. Chord names are written above the fretboard grid. Over time, you'll get good at just reading the name of the chord and you'll automatically know the fingering by heart. The G shown here stands for G major. Anytime you see just a capital letter by itself, a major chord is being shown. Take, for example, this chord diagram showing a D major chord. Only the letter D is required to notate it. If a chord has a lowercase m next to the uppercase letter, a minor chord is being notated, such as this example of a D minor chord. If a superscript 7 is placed next to the letter, then a dominant 7 chord is being shown. Later lessons will discuss in detail the theoretical differences between all the different types of chords. But for now, you should just memorize each chord by its name and learn each chord sound by heart. One last thing to point out here. Take another look at the D major chord again. You may have noticed something unique in its notation. There are 2 adjacent dots with the number 1 placed inside both. and a curved line connecting them. This is an example of a bar. Bars are used to fret more than one note with a single finger. In this case, finger 1 is used to play fret 2 on strings 4 and 3 simultaneously. Okay, time to review. We have the staff with a clef, a time signature, end bar line, and normal bar line, sometimes a repeat bar line. We have the tablature staff, which is 4 lines, which also has a clef and a time signature, and includes bar lines. And finally, we have chord diagrams, which show you where to place your fingers on the fretboard so you can strum the sound of a particular chord. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Cheers.